Okay, if you clicked on this video, you're either wondering, what's TUA? Or you're thinking that, well, you're happy for TUA. Anyway, let me explain what TUA is. Also, because there's going to be pretty much no visuals for this video, I'm probably just going to put random images on screen, so that way you don't get bored while I speak. Anyway, let me explain, I guess, how TUA Part 1 is going to go, I guess. I'm not going to spoil too much, just enough to give you the idea. So, a long time ago, there was a system, and just because I'm lazy, I'm not going to give it a name. In that system, there were a lot of giants, but there was one little rocky planet, who you all will get to know as Prime. Him being the only rocky planet in the solar system essentially made him the plaything for the other giants due to how much smaller he was. He tried taking on hobbies like trying to learn how to play the sitar or singing, but due to the fact he was constantly messed with, it was hard. He also had no moons, so he pretty much didn't have any friends. However, some minor moons of the giants would occasionally come over, because, I don't know, they're minor moons, and they were curious. So Prime did at least have some people to talk to. One of the things they would do is they'd stretch him out, using their gravity to pull on his poles, and see how much they could stretch him before his crust started to crack. Eventually, this turned him into the shape you see him as now, and, well, then they realized they couldn't stretch him anymore because he had essentially been stretched as much as he could without completely breaking. So they decided to use their gravity and fling him around, essentially playing catch with him. Eventually, this eventually backfired, with them using too much gravity and getting Prime caught in a figure-8 loop around them. And one of the giants ended up flinging him too hard, and he went flying near the sun of their solar system. However, the star, not noticing, didn't try and do anything to stop it. So it caused Prime to orbit around the star once and be flung out of the system at rapid speeds. Unfortunately, he did not take anything with him except for his microphone and his sitar. Which, you know, sucks on his end, but anyway. When Prime was drifting outside of his system, he quickly panicked and passed out from all the fear, I guess. He passed out from shock. He would occasionally wake up, but he was still delirious, so every time he woke up, he'd just pass out again. He kept drifting like this for a while, until eventually he saw a star that was green, which actually surprised him enough to shock him out. He eventually realized where he was, and looked back at that green star. He was surprised because he had never seen a green star anywhere, and, well, it piqued his interest. He kept waiting and waiting until he realized that this star, unlike the others, was getting bigger, which made him realize he was heading towards that star. He tried thinking of a plan, but there wasn't much he could do to slow himself down. Eventually, he started seeing the system up close when he realized that there weren't just one star. There was 4. And he was heading for the central one, who you know now as Arkham. He saw a planet orbiting very, very close to the star, who you know as Arcane, and it led Prime with 2 options: plummet into Arkham, which would almost guarantee his dissolving. He'd go bye-bye if he stayed on his current path, or he could try and fling himself into Arcane, or the random planet he saw, and hope he survives. And when left with no other option, he flung himself as hard as he could and hit Arcane. Of course, when Prime lands, he somehow survives, and Arcane turns around, immediately being very angry at Prime for hitting him right in the head. Prime apologizes as much as he could, but that's when Arcane realizes that he's new. And since Ultimatum doesn't get rogue objects, it immediately reminded Arcane of the trials. Now let me jump back to another point in time, back when Ultimatum was first being, made. It happened shortly after all the planets were being forged, being made, and the system had entered a relatively peaceful state. Eventually, some events happened, but I'll share those events in the Ultimatum lore video whenever I make it. Assuming I do. I will. Don't worry, I will. Eventually, I just need to have time to do it. But anyway, I'm getting off track. When an event happened in which they saw how the universe could be destructive, how dangerous it could be if something they weren't familiar with could wreak havoc in their system. So they decided to forge a rule that any object that entered their solar system from outside of their solar system had to face every single object in a rap battle of some kind. And if they were able to pass every single object, only then would they be allowed to stay. And if they did not want to cooperate, they would be flung back out of the system. At the time, everyone was still somewhat nervous, so they all agreed. As time went on, eventually people really stopped worrying about the trials. They had assumed nothing would ever happen. The only person who, there was really only a few people in the solar system who really still believed in it, but there were still only a few objects that still believed, but it's not like that helped. But Arcane explained to Prime about the trials and how it would go. Prime was immediately scared because he's not the best at rapping, but Arcane said that he'd go easy on him and show him the ropes to get him, to unrust him. Prime was still worried, but it's not like he had anything better. Although, he did think, since he could just leave, but he realized that he most likely wasn't going to get a chance to enter another system ever. And this system was already far nicer than his old system had ever been. So he decided to take a breath and go for it. And that's where TUA Part 1 starts. So, yeah. There's not much else I can say, but maybe if this video gets enough view or whatever, I'll share some kind of leak. I mean, there's not actually much done, so there isn't really much I can leak to the public, but I'll find something. Anyway, I hope this has sort of explained what TUA is going to be like, and why it's being made. But, yeah, if you're excited for it, I don't know, say something. But, yeah, progress is still happening, and while I'm not sure when it'll be done, I'm hoping it happens before 2025, because that's going to be really sad if we have all these months and we still can't do anything. Anyway, see ya next video? I don't know, something. Anyway, bye.